Let me just hit the record before I forget, because that's been known to happen. Hi, everyone. Welcome, welcome. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
I can't believe it's already halfway through January. How's everyone doing? Are we surviving? Is the weather okay where you are? Is it crazy COVID where you are?
I'm just checking to see if this will work. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
And it didn't, so we'll keep working.
Melissa says she's hoping for snow. Oh my.
Oh gosh, well, where are you? Because I'm in a place where they say that any days that we miss, I have to make up. So I'm not for that.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, we were told at the beginning of this year that there would be no more snow days in New York. I'm in New York. And so they set up a remote process in case we had snow so that we could just pivot and go remote instead of giving kids a snow day, because God forbid we should give them a day to be kids and play in the snow. So last week they didn't close the schools for snow or for COVID, and we had 20% attendance in the building on Friday, which is just ridiculous. And I think I just saw on the news that our mayor is finally considering doing a remote option because he's had so much pushback. The kids had a walkout this week. Students, all of New York, they did a walkout. It's funny, when the kids finally do something as a collective, then they get attention. Nobody listens to the teachers when they're saying this is not working. You know, and they pay us because we're supposedly professionals, but they don't listen to us. So I don't know.
No, I see
It'll be
somebody's in.
my new mantra for this last 2 years is it be what it be and roll with it, because there's no other choice, and it's just what you got to do. So everybody's trickling in. I'm really excited for this. I don't know what the timing was that you posted it, because I actually had my mom and some friends over to my house. Was it a week ago, 2 weeks ago, where I tried to do a coil basket project. And it was with recycled fabric wrapped around the rope, and none of us could figure out how to even get it started. So it was a little frustrating. And then 2 days later or something, you posted your basket, and I was like, oh my God, I have to grab you and ask you, because I want to make a basket and I want to make it with my kids, and I couldn't figure out how to do it. So it was just kismet. And thank you, thank you, thank you. The
Did
universe.
somebody just join us on horseback?
Is that Lee?
That's probably Lee. She has a ranch, a farm, when horses. Yes.
Who is that?
Yes,
Lee.
she has a farm. Lee Darter.
Yeah.
I have such a huge group from Virginia, because I met all you guys through Julie, and she brought me into your Friday night draw situation, and I know more of you from Virginia than from New York. It's really funny.
Well,
I love it. I love it though. I love that I meet people from everywhere, and it's just fantastic connecting with like-minded people this way. And it's a great support group and a great way to learn and help each other out. So,
and I think Carolyn's from Texas, and didn't you win an award? Didn't I see one of my friends? I used to teach down in Houston, so.
I was elementary art educator of the year.
Congratulations. That's awesome. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I recognize that name. I was like, wait a minute, Texas, I think you won an award. But yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and Lee, I see there's a lot of folks that I recognize some names.
Lots from that group.
Yeah.
Somebody asked if you're still doing Friday night draw. I think they're on hiatus right now.
We have a transition. So we are going to be doing Friday night draw. It's going to actually transition to once a month, and we're going to do it on a Friday. It'll be the last Friday. We've already got a schedule planned for this month, and I think it'll be great. So I'm looking forward to that. And yeah,
Perfect.
we're getting a reboot. Lee was our fabulous Friday night draw guru, and she moved to Georgia, and so I'm in the process of getting Jess Beach, who will be our new social media person, and she's going to be getting ready to get that started.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. Well, again, welcome to our Thursday night art teachers art club. I love this. I wish I could find a way to shorten that, but nothing really comes to mind, and it just is perfect because it says this is all about us and we need it for us. So I am happy to see you all, and I have posted for next week, which is actually a meeting through NYCATA, which is our union in New York City. It's a great competition for the city, but everybody's invited to listen in and maybe take ideas back to your own districts and use it if you'd like to, but only entrants to participate. It's about imagine if, and give the kids free rein to come up with ideas, and it'll be presented, the whole situation will be presented next week. And Matt Young also just volunteered to run a session for us in February, so I'm excited about that. He is, I think, isn't he the president of the Ohio Art Educators Association? I think. But he has run a couple of sessions for us before, and I'm working to get more on the calendar. And yes, all the recordings are on YouTube on the NYCATA UFT channel. We have about 26, 27 sessions that anybody can watch, which is great. And we're going to keep them coming. So if anybody wants to volunteer to run a session, contact me. If you know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody, let me know. Give them my information. And I'm going to hand it over to Holly. And thank you so much for agreeing to do this for us.
You're welcome. Well, I will say, I think I was just seeing so many of my students be really stressed to the point of, middle schoolers sometimes have a hard go of it
I
anyway.
had to change it by yesterday. So we're just going to have salmon and I'll eat the quiche. Okay.
Can we mute ourselves if we're not asking questions, please? I'll have some quiche though, if you have any.
I know, I was
Oh,
gonna
I'm
say the
so
salmon.
sorry.
It's okay.
I'm a Google school. I don't even know how to mute myself. I feel stupid.
Just click on the little microphone on the bottom left of your screen.
We work with that all the time. But I think the baskets, I was seeing my students just in tears because they were super stressed over deadlines and coursework and kids being sick. And we've had a lot of students who've had to do at home learning, or they're coming back and they're trying to catch up with everything. So I haven't done Coil baskets for a good 20 years. This is something that I did early on in my career. So probably 20 years ago, I started doing these with my middle schoolers. And I was trying to think of something that I knew kids could do in a repetitive format and kind of have fun with it. So in December, I was like, you know what? I'm bringing Coil baskets back. So there are lots of different ways that you can create these. This is one that one of my students created, and you can kind of see she was picking out different types of yarn and creating patterns with it. And she actually did some stitch work after to kind of, you can sort of see the lines that she was creating, which was also helping to make it a little bit firmer and stiff. So it would hold the shape a little bit more. And you can see they can be pretty good shapes. I've had several students actually ask if they could make multiples. And kids have wanted to take some of the extra rope home so that they could take little baggies so that they could do it at home. I've had kids take these with them to their other classes, and while they're listening, it's like the best fidget toy because they're making something. So I hope you enjoy it. I am going to show you how to get started, but you can kind of see the gist of it. You're getting yarn. If you have really thin yarn, I double it up because it takes a lot longer. So I told the kids, I'm like, you can take more than one strand of yarn. So it really doesn't matter what type of yarn you can use. Lee, I know, has done things with scraps of fabric that she's wrapped in a similar way. I actually learned how to do pine needle baskets, which is a Southern thing, many years ago, where you take little bits of pine needle and wrap it with coil with string, and you can make a pine basket. My dad served in World War II in Alaska, and when I was a little girl, one of my favorite little things that he brought back was actually made out of the fibers in the back of a whale's throat. And they took those fibers and would stitch and make coil baskets in the same format as this.
Wow.
So this way of making a basket can be found in a lot of different cultures, which is interesting. So you can really kind of think of ways that you could make them in different ways. So I'm going to show you, I've got two different types. So this is depending on what material you've got. Kind of scoot this out of the way. And if anybody has any questions, just let me know. This is from the hardware store. It's clothesline rope. Used to hang our clothes up to dry in the summertime. So this is the clothesline rope. You can get it fairly inexpensively. And it's a little bit thinner and not as sturdy. But there is also, from most of the catalogs for art supplies, you can get coil. This is like, it feels like a kind of a paper, and it's got a little wrapped around. And this is actually for coil baskets, and you can usually find it in kits. Sometimes they'll say, a basket making kit, and so you can order this rope. You can get replacements of it. So you can do it with either one. I will just say, if you're using the clothesline, I stitch a little bit tighter to give it more strength and firm it up a little bit, if that makes sense. And then I like to start, I cut the end, and I hope you can see this. So I cut the end of the rope in a diagonal. So as if, and here's the raw end. If you can see that, it's kind of cut as if you were cutting your flowers for the water so that they could get a nice healthy drink of water. So I cut it in an angle. That helps if you're wanting to add more rope on later. And it also helps when you are finishing off your basket, because it makes the tapered end a little bit smoother so that when it ends. So I would say that would be the first thing. Yeah.
1 second. Krista says, how do we see what you're doing? I pinned Holly. So can everybody see the large screen of her hands?
No,
Let me
No,
see, do I need to pin it? I'll pin it.
maybe
There
you
we
need
go.
to pin it. Can you guys see it now?
Can you see me now? Can you hear me?
I think everybody has to pin their own. Like,
Oh,
because
I've
I
never-
had to do it to make it, I don't know.
if you can find the picture of Holly's hand, roll your mouse over her picture, and then 3 little dots, you should be able to pin hers on your screen. Everybody good now?
oh, yes.
Okay.
You
Okay.
find me?
Yep. All right. Sorry.
Where do I find her hands?
The
I-
picture. Can you see, if you scroll through all of everybody's pictures who are in with us, she's got 2 screens. One is of her face.
Oh, I see it. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm sorry. Wasn't sure everybody thought you could see me. It's a magic trick.
And Leanne asked, how long of a piece of rope should we cut to start?
So that's the other thing I was going to tell you. So I try to not give my kids too big of a piece because they end up getting tangled up. Of course, I teach middle school, so it doesn't take much for my kids to trip over their own feet. So I tend to, it's arm span is what I'm starting with. So if I were to reach my arms out, it's an arm span. And that's usually what I have the kids start with. So just like fingertips to fingertips, you can always add more later. And this also helps as you start wrapping, if that makes sense. So I think when I cut, I usually get a whole bunch of it and cut it while I'm watching TV when I'm doing it for my classes. And I usually do about like 3 feet, if that helps.
Thank you.
And then, like I said, at the end, and so if those of you who didn't get to see earlier, when you are cutting the end of your rope, you're going to cut it so that it has a taper at the end. This is going to help. And I do it on both. The beginning end has a taper and the other end has a taper. Now, if you are using clothesline, you know, it might fray when you cut it, right? So that's why tape, the masking tape was on the supply list. So my students just wrap it like a little snake, and they just wrap it really nice and tight around the end. And that will be hidden by your yarn as you start your basket. So the tape is just to cover up any little fray bits that you might not want to see the guts of the yarn coming out.
Perfect.
How do you not fray it? I don't know. Mine's frayed. I just tape it. So what I did, so this one is the tape. You can see the core of it. I just started wrapping it until it got as tight as you can. And then as you tape it up, it's really no problem. So I just cover up the fray. Hide it under the tape. It's all good. So if anybody has any questions, I'll give you a second. So what I do is I just take a piece of masking tape, maybe 2-3 inches long, and I just start at the end and I wrap the tape around it as tightly as I can. And like I said, about 3 feet or your arm span is a good length. When I'm having my students cut the yarn that they're going to use for their bowl or basket, some of them even want to make like a coaster, like a little coaster or hot plate, basically. They can make bases. They can really make just about anything. I have them plan out their colors and their scheme for their design. You can see I've wrapped that around. So that fray, it's all in there. You just stuff it in. So when you're cutting your yarn, I have my students get their yarn as they need it. And if it's a thinner piece of yarn, I have them double, because otherwise we're all going to be here until COVID isn't on this earth trying to do this. Or if they have a thicker yarn. So I sent an email out to my staff and I said, hey, we're doing baskets. Does anybody have yarn where you thought you were going to make a cute little beanie for somebody and you didn't? Can you bring it? And the next morning I had 3 bags of yarn hanging on my classroom door and a couple boxes sitting by the door. So we got a plethora of yarn and the kids were like, hey, it's Christmas, we can make everything. So so just send an email out if you don't have a lot of yarn choices, because you never know what somebody has in an old closet that they're never going to revisit. But if you have a thicker yarn, you might not, it might not take as long, but lots of different yarn patterns and textures work. But like I said, if it's super thin, I would maybe double it up. So when you're cutting your yarn for your starter piece, I also get an arm span of yarn. So if you'll go ahead and cut a piece of yarn, whatever color or piece you would like to start with. But my students, and you can kind of see, I have my kids keep theirs in Ziploc bags. They can write their name on the bag. It's the ones that have like the little writing spot on it. So they can put their name in Sharpie, and they put everything that they have in that little bag, and it makes it nice and neat. I have a little bin that they can pull theirs out of. I have the different classes so it doesn't get tangled together if you're doing this with your class. But you can see, look what fun patterns happen when they start to do different colors and things. It's just, and they're all so different. They're just so fun when they start getting those different colors. Here's someone who's not afraid of color.
Oh, that's great.
It almost looks like a flower.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you know, you can have fun with it. This is where scraps of yarn have fun. And the kids are like, ooh, I'll do it until it gets all the way around and then I'll change to a different color. So the kids will really start having a great time. And I think you'll have fun with this. And the great thing too, is once you get started, the kids can just sit and talk and wrap and sew. And as one of my friends said, it's like a stitch and bitch session because you're just, excuse me on that one, but you're just wrapping and you can just talk. And I think my students needed that. And I think maybe we might too. So
We should do this for a faculty meeting, stitch and bitch. I like that.
yeah, it's kind of one of those things. So
Yeah.
so I am right-handed. So let me go ahead and clarify that. I'm right-handed. I like to wrap with my right hand. I'm going to sew with my right hand. If you're left-handed, you might want to do this the opposite way. And I say that because some of my kids are like, I'm getting tangled in my stuff when I'm wrapping. I keep my coil to my left-hand side. So the tail of my coil is going over to my left side. And I have the end that I'm going to start with kind of facing. I tell them it's like a little snake that's getting ready to bite me and it's coming in from the left-hand side. Did I tell you I teach middle school? I come up with stupid stuff that I say all the time. So you'll just have to forgive me on that. And sorry if I start to get a really bad Southern drawl. I am from Virginia. And when I get tired, it gets worse. So just warning you there too. And I did spend some time in Texas. So Carolyn knows I got a little Texas drawl added in there. So let's get started. Are we ready? Do we have our yarn? Are we good?
Got the
Yeah.
yarn and a needle. Someone says your needle is plastic. Is that
It
okay?
is. I teach middle school. If there was something
Okay,
purposely sharp, even rulers can sometimes be a danger when you're thinking of a 13-year-old. But yeah, I have a little, these are tapestry plastic needles. They come in a 3-pack from Walmart. I ordered some tapestry needles from Blick recently. I got them yesterday. Not impressed. I'll just say that because they were super flimsy. But these were literally 3 in a pack. And I want to say that they were like $1 or something. It wasn't very much.
because I have a plastic needle from doing the looming, you know, like so is that okay?
Perfectly fine.
Okay, I wasn't sure if it was sharp enough to go through it.
Yep. It doesn't have to be super sharp.
Okay.
I tend to not have too many sharp things in my class. If I could, because if not, I have to be so careful. I teach in a high trauma school, so I have to be cautious. Think about my little ones. All right, so here's how we're doing this. And I'm going to try to make sure that you all can see me. And I might even, I'm in my classroom, friends, so I'm hoping that you can, I don't know if this is going to help see this better. It's white behind it. I thought the black would help, but all right. So can you see my fingers?
Yes.
Okay, so I got the snake and his little head is pointing and I've got the end of my string, my thread, my yarn. Now I'm going to work backwards. I'm going to put about, we're going to say 2 to 3 inches so that they're lined up. It's like 2 snakes that are getting ready to attack each other. One's kind of going, so I got the end over here. And we're going to work our way down to the point. I'm holding the end with my fingers. And I'm going to take my yarn and I'm going to just wrap around. I'm just kind of, I'm holding it just to kind of get it started. It does overlap itself just to sort of tie it in. So if I show you, I'm holding this, you can even kind of do it like this and hold, but I tend to do it this way because my fingers just, I'm holding it and I wrap it so that it kind of wraps over itself just a little bit to get started. And you just wrap until you get the first, like we'll say 2 inches of coil wrapped. Okay, now I'm getting to the end. Okay, when I get close to the end, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bend this over as if I was making the start of a spiral. Or like a little top of a candy cane. So I'm bending it over like a little U shape. Can you see that?
Yeah.
It just bends over. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and wrap both parts. So it's just tightly pulling these 2 pieces together. Now there's going to be a little bit of a belly button that's formed in the middle. There's a little hole, little belly button. That belly button's going to be where the needle's going to go through. So it's okay if there's a little belly button hole right there, because that's where our thread's going to go through when we do the first coil around.
So don't cover the hole.
Don't cover the hole completely because we got to go through the belly button. The belly of the beast is what's making the bottom of our basket.
Belly beast bottom basket. Got it.
Yeah, sorry. I like,
Alliterate.
I do. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Y'all are going to get giddy with me here in a little bit and be like, oh, she's crazy. Who'd she invite to come do this? Once you get it wrapped up and you get it kind of tight, I'm just going to wrap around so it sort of looks, you've got the little U shape where it bent through. The lighting is weird. If I can spotlight this for a minute.
Yep, we could see it.
If that helps. See how that's wrapped around and I'm holding it with my hand. So I work with my left hand holding everything and my right hand is doing the work.
Got it.
Give you a minute to do that. And what I'm going to do with my other end of thread, and I do sometimes, I should have put this probably on the little list. I like binder clips. And I tell the kids, oh, if you've got to get some extra yarn or if you need to go to the bathroom, use a binder clip to hold your stuff where it was. And then you can take off and go and do your business if you got to. So binder clips are great. If you don't have a binder clip handy, because I didn't write that on the little to-do list, tape, you should have that. But I love binder clips. They're great. Yeah. So if you need an extra finger to hold something, but I'm going to take the other end and we're going to thread my needle on the other end. So I'm gonna, and I think in winter my nails always break, so I'm like having to like stuff this through here. Okay. I don't usually have the kids tie a knot or anything. I just have them, do the little dangle. Because I think that the knot sometimes gets stuck when you're trying to sew through, and that's just a hot mess. So I try to not do that. Oops.
Oh, I
How
just realized that I threaded my needle doubled, but took both ends together. So now.
It's okay if your thread's doubly thick.
No,
That's
no,
okay.
my thread is now permanently in my needle.
That's
'Cause
okay.
I wrapped my end, so I'll have to cut it.
It's
cut it
okay.
out. Okay,
It's all good.
got it.
There really are no mistakes in this because you can make it work as you go through. So what's going to happen is your beginning part is going to go a lot faster. So
Okay.
you can make it work. I'm going to grab a plug really quick. Hold on.
Sarah, the needle is on the same piece of thread that you wrapped.
Yes.
Yes.
charging my phone because it's my alternate Wi-Fi source in case things go awry here. So backup plan for a backup plan. Not that we teachers who've had to do online, virtual, and every other thing haven't had to think of like backup plans for backup plans, right?
Yeah, we don't do backup plans because technology always works when you need it.
Right.
Always.
So, I've got my needle on one end of the seine yarn, and I've got the little belly button here that is wrapped around, and that's the coil, that's the start. So this is going to end up being the middle of the spiral of the bottom of your bowl. Okay.
Okay,
Are we ready to start wrapping?
ready.
I'm not going to wrap like a rapper. Like, I'm not going to start spitting and doing things like that. One of my students was talking about rappers. They're like, are you going to start rapping, Miss Kincaid? I'm like, no. So what we're going to do, okay, so I've got it started. I like to do a pattern and of like how many times I stitch and how many times I wrap. Because if I keep that pattern going, I think that it makes really beautiful patterns. So if you see, this is Sophia. Sophia did like 4 stitches and then 4 wraps, 4 stitches and 4 wraps. Now you can change that number up. I tended to do more of and tell kids to do something a little bit more like this. And let me take this out of here so that you can see this. But I tended to tell the kids to do like 7, depending on the thickness of your yarn. Now you will need to adjust, but depending on the thickness of your yarn, 7 to 9. If it's a thinner yarn, you might want to wrap 9 times and then like 2 stitches. So this is a pattern of like 7, 2, 7, 2, 7, 2. And so we're going to start that little situation of the wrapping and the sewing. Kids are going to walk in the morning and they'll be like, Miss Kincaid, your desk is a total disaster of our weaving projects. I'm gonna have to take care of this before I go home. So I've wrapped just a little bit. Okay, so I'm like 1, I probably did 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so I wrapped it a little bit and then I'm just going to start bending it. And I'm going to start making, this is where you get to kind of force it and tell it what you want it to do. I tell my kids, you can't really tell me what you want me to do, but you can tell your fabric what to do. So I'm bending it around, making it what I call like an E shape. So it looks like a little E, like a snail. Can you see that?
So the long piece is on top, not the bottom.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm doing it so that the stuff is working towards my left and I'm just making it like a little E shape. So it looks like a little, or like the @ sign when you're adding somebody on Twitter or their handle or whatever, the little swirlies. Does it have a name? Probably does. So once you have it wrapped, then you're going to stitch. I take my plastic needle and go through that belly button. And when I stitch, tell the kids I'm going to pull it kind of tight because I'm wanting it to stay where I want it to be. So when I pull that stitch, I'm kind of being a little bit tight to make sure that it holds in place. And I'm going to hold it in that E position. And I hope that is making sense.
How many times do we go through the middle?
Twice. I do twice. So I do
Okay.
2 stitches.
Okay.
And so you're going to repeat this pattern. And so the pattern is going to be 7 to 9 wraps and then 2 stitches. 7 to 9 wraps, 2 stitches. Now, if you have, like you can do, as this student had done where she did 4 stitches, 4 wraps, 4 stitches, 4 wraps. makes a little bit of a thicker pattern, your stitches are really going to become part of the pattern. Now, if you have a more organic or fluffier yarn, the stitching pattern doesn't necessarily, and this student was doing colors that sort of were multicolored yarns that were variegated. The stitches don't really show as much in the pattern. I'm going to see if you can see this one. See, these are more muted tones. The stitches almost disappear. You can still see them a little bit, but not as much. So depending on your yarn or your color choices, you can really be pretty bold with your stitching. And I think, like, I love hers. To me, this is like a abstract flower or something. So your stitches become those little lines. So once you've sewn twice, I keep the cord, the main cord, or the clothesline, right? It's in my left hand, and my right hand then once I've stitched, I go over and I'm just wrapping. So I'm going to wrap 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then I bend it again and stitch twice. So I personally do 7 and 2, 7 and 2, typically, because I think it holds a little bit stronger. I feel like the more, if I stitch a little bit more often, it's a little bit tighter and I don't have that tendency of larger gaps between the stitching. And I feel like it makes the bottom a little bit stiffer. And then again, when you make your stitches, especially in this first couple goes, you want to pull it kind of tight.
How many times do we go into the center before we start going somewhere else?
You're a great wingman. Can I just say that? Because that's what I was getting ready to go to.
Thank you.
Good wingman. So what you're going to do, perfect question. So after you get to a point, so like I'm going to wrap it probably until here. So if I keep going all the way around, I would still go into the middle because this is the next coil. So I'm always going to the next coil. Once I get past and I'm back around to where, so if I can show you here, right? When I've gotten my coil where I've wrapped it around to the point where getting to the middle, I would have to cross over 2 layers. That's too far. You don't want to stretch 3 miles into the middle. You can just go to the last coil. So once you get to once you've gone all the way around one time, the middle part, you don't go into the belly button anymore. And it does start to get really thick and closed off anyway. So you can't really fit your needle in there once it gets to a certain point. But once you've gone all the way around the middle, you'll then start doing, and now this student did the pink all the way around their purple just to make it really strong. So she just went a little bit crazy on the pink there. But you want to, once you can see like the pink and the blue are stitched together. So it's basically 2 little neighbor coils get stitched together. So once you get all the way around the middle, then you start doing the neighbor coil.
Got it.
Does that clarify? So you're just going to keep repeating 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I probably shouldn't be counting because you guys are probably like, you just messed up my numbers.
I'm ready to ask you my next question, but
Go for it.
So I'm already used up my first 3 feet of yarn.
Good for you.
So I cut.
So what do you do, right?
Yeah, I cut it and then I start new one, but I don't knot anything. I wrap over it like the way we started.
I'm good. Yeah. So here, I'm ready to do that too.
Okay.
As I said, you're a really good wingman. So I'm at the end of my rope.
Aren't we all?
The end of my rope.
That was
Yeah.
perfect.
Oh Lord, it's getting deep in here. Okay,
Yeah.
so I'm gonna start my next yarn. So I'm at the end of my rope. I don't knot anything because knots are going to look yucky. I just bury stuff in there. It's pretty much like the last couple years. I just keep burying it and keep moving on. Keep moving on. So I'm going to take my next piece of yarn and I'm going to put the end, see the two ends. I've got the two little raw bits there. I'm going to hold them with my thumb and I'm just going to wrap this up maybe once or twice. And I'm going to use my binder clip because I don't have that extra set of fingers that I need so that I can put my needle on the other end. And I'm using some crazy yarn here just to kind of show you a little weird texture. I will say the funniest thing doing this, because we do have a mask mandate for my students at my school.
Yeah.
The most problematic thing with this project when you have students wearing masks is they really wish they could lick the end of the yarn. That's the only thing I will say. So I just tell them to take an extra needle and poke it through so they figure it out. So that's what you do. You just wrap your next piece of yarn around it so that the end is kind of buried a little bit and bend and stitch.
Oh my gosh, this is so easy. And
Suddenly I felt like I was going to do that. Do you remember that? What was it? What was the movie where the bend and snap?
oh yes, isn't that
Clueless or no, I don't know.
I don't remember
That
having
was that little fluffy girl, but anyway.
brain
So it
fog.
says I'm just bend and stitch and wrap and stitch.
You took all of the impossibility of it and just made it possible.
It's really once you get this first little bit, the kids, the stress level stops and there's just this hush over the room and they are just focused on wrapping, and it's not super taxing on your brain once you get the wrapping and the stitching, the pattern, right? You're doing the same thing. It's like a great fidget because you're just wrapping, bending, and then stitch. And you can see here, hopefully, that I am at the point where I'm not going all the way into the middle anymore. I'm doing the last coil. If that makes Legally Blonde. Thank you, Lori.
That's it. Yes.
I could see the motion in my head. And I was like, if anybody has any questions, just let me know.
I am so grateful to you for this because now I'm going to do it because I need a hush in my classroom.
It
But I
really,
also, I need a product because everybody's so fried they don't want to do anything, and this is just fabulous.
well, and honestly, I think there were kids that were bringing in, you know, grandma had some yarn and it's like a pretty color and they were starting. One of my students made her sister's Christmas present.
Aw.
Hey,
with
Holly,
this.
I have a question. I
Yeah.
got distracted by a phone call.
Mhm.
How do we add the new piece of string? Do we just
Oh,
tie it like a knot?
Yeah, no,
When
no
reading
knots.
or no? No, no,
No
no, no.
knots, no
No.
knots. You literally, you take the two ends, so the new end and the old end, and
Okay,
you just wrap it over. So the end
Okay.
is buried in there.
okay,
So no need for knots. And then the raw end just gets hidden
Okay.
away and nobody has, it's the little secret that nobody needs to know is there.
okay. And then you said there's a new belly button now too?
Well, you don't stitch all the way to the middle anymore. You
Okay,
only go to the last coil. So if you can see, like I've already gotten all the way around one time. So now instead of stitching all the way, because I would have to go all the way to here, that's too far. I just do to the last coil.
okay,
So it's just neighbor coils that are
Neighbor
getting
coils.
stuck to
Okay.
coils. Yeah, they
Got
get
it.
stitched together. And I think it's a little bit more clear to see, I think, if you look. So it's just the last 2 coils that goes. And you just keep, 7 stitches, 9 stitches, depending on the thickness of your yarn. My yarn right now is really thick. I might go to 5 stitches because it's going really fast. Because I don't like to have too far of a distance between the stitches, because I think that it kind of leaves cracks. So you can adjust it as you change your yarn. I do have students that as they were starting to do their patterns, and you can kind of see I'm at one of these points right now. So this color that I was doing, this variegated, has made a full loop. And so some of my students would say, oh, well, once I've gotten one time around, I'm going to change to a different color. So you might find that your 3 feet that you cut, you might want to change it. You can. So if the kids decide, they can just trim it and wrap in the next yarn. So they can easily do it. So I'm not having to tie a billion knots for kids. So those kids that are in middle school that still don't know how to tie, they don't have to worry about it with this because they're just wrapping it in. No knots required, which is helpful for me. There we go. So I've made it all the way around with this color. And yeah, the binder clips are great when they're first starting. If you have the bigger binder clips, you can have them put that in just to help it keep the snail shape. That helps. I do tell the kids to try to be mindful. They'll get into stitching and then they're like, oh no, I'm at the end of my rope, and go, got to pay attention to how much thread you've got left, and they'll run and get their other colors. And the kids had a lot of fun having color theory talks about like, what color do you think would go best with these colors? So little things started to come into discussions that were a lot of fun.
How do you grade something like this? Like if you had to put up a rubric, what are you looking for?
So I told the students that it needed to be functional in some way. So if they were choosing to make a basket or a bowl, or because I've had students even make almost like a pencil cup that have been made so it was straight up on the sides and it could hold pencils and things. I tell them that it needs to be functional. I tell them that I am looking for their color choices and pattern choices that they're making. Also that it will hold together and not fall apart. So, strength and craftsmanship are going to be counting with that. I also grade where I have the students write a little statement about it. And that's usually where they'll tell me like a little bit of stories about what they've learned or what they noticed or what they observed. So they have a communication thing. So my rubrics are basically creativity, craftsmanship, communication, where they're telling me about that, the criteria of what I'm asking them to do. So it's a bunch of C's. You remember earlier when I used a bunch of B's? My rubric is a bunch of C's. So it's craftsmanship, the criteria, what I've asked them to do for whatever the project. And it's the same thing for all of my rubrics. I just use those same C's and change up what the craftsmanship's always there. The communication, you tell me about what you learned, what you did. Criteria was that it had to be functional, needed to not fall apart. And usually in the communication, they told me what they were using it for. Some of them wanted to make it like flat, like a hot plate. Others were thinking more like a basket. I did have students, and I think I have one student who's made 3 of them.
Say, do you have a size limitation or an amount limitation?
Hi, Lee, thanks. I've given them a certain amount of time, and I sort of do a choice classroom. So every Friday is sort of a studio Friday where they can finish projects or work on things. So I had one girl today who saw some cardboard and it's like, I'm going to make some gingerbread houses and start gluing these together to make. So the kids kind of have some choices. I give them projects Monday through Thursday, and then Friday, if they have done something or learned something, they can take that and use that time. Or if they're a perfectionist, like I was as a kid, I needed extra time to do things. So
Yeah.
that Friday is that day where they can work on things. But with the kids, a lot of them, they asked for, I think like this bowl has two, it's 6 feet of, this bowl has 6 feet. I don't know if you can see this. This bowl has 6 feet of coil.
Okay.
And I bought two, I went to Lowe's and I got like 2 of the 100-foot clothesline things that you can get. And I still have plenty. And I did it with 55 kids.
Okay.
And I've had, I would say, a bunch of kids who've done like 3 that they
Wow.
just were like, can I do another one? And they'll take it with them during the day. And their
Yeah.
teachers are saying, well, while they're listening, they're just sitting there and they're listening. It's like their fidget toy. So if you have a really supportive staff that doesn't mind when a kid's like, fidgeting with their fingers, this is a great thing to do. Oh, thank you, Shelley. Bye.
I have another good question.
Yeah.
So if you want to start working up,
Yes.
what do you do to change the direction of the coil instead of around? How do you go up?
Okay. So once you get your center, you are going to, and there's a couple different ways. If you want a gradual angle to your bowl, you're slowly going to have, instead of the coil, and I'll try to show this on here, instead of the coil being beside it, neighbored, it's going to kind of be at an angle. So it'll just be diagonal. We'll say kind of a little bit of a slant over to the side. And then if I wanted it to go straight up, like I was making a cup, I would go on top.
Okay.
I think my custodian is singing in the hallway. So if you start hearing some Hispanic singing, we might start singing along. So just know that, yeah, she's singing. It's the party in the hallway. We're missing it. So yeah, if you want to go up, you just start angling it. And then when you start doing that edge or going up, just make the stitches pretty tight again so that it will hold your position.
Okay.
I might run and shut the door because I think she's getting closer and the singing's getting louder. Can I pause for a minute and go shut my door?
Sure.
Okay, because I'm not sure what she's thinking and I don't know what she's saying, but just in case it's not something appropriate, be right back.
This is so much easier than I thought it was going to be.
It is. I watched a video yesterday just to try to get a glimpse of it. And that
Uh-huh.
video was hard. You're teaching it way better than the video I found yesterday, just to try to.
Curious how many of us actually did not know how to do this and how many this is our first time, including myself.
My
Oh,
first.
nice. I hope it's making sense. So Debbie is asking, how do you add more rope? Well, a good question. I can show you. So when you get to the end, I have one that's almost at the end of the rope. So this actually, hey, oh, I picked up the perfect one, friends. This one actually has 2 that are stuck together. I had this student just tape. I don't know if you can see this. but she just added to hers. So she taped 2 coils to the next piece. She just taped it together. So when you cut the end of your rope at that angle, right, you take the other angled end and they fit together like a cute little puzzle that they were just, they're just meant to be. It's a match made in heaven. Right there it is. And you just tape around that and keep going.
That's so easy.
It's really not hard. I seriously, I needed a non-stress project because when kids are crying in my classroom and we're going through tissues because they're crying, we've got to find something. This is not hard. I tell the kids, like, friends, we're going to play some music. I'm going to play Vitamin String Quartet. We're just going to sit, we're going to rap, we're going to talk, we're going to tell me about what you're going to do on a snow day. But so yeah, you just tape the new piece on. You could do it where you just wrap it around really tightly, but I do the tape as security method. Another question that might be coming into people's minds, how do you finish it off? Okay.
Yeah.
When you get to the end is near. Okay. So when I get to the end, I tell the kids, just stitch it until there is no more. So the last inch is just stitching. Stitch it until it's done. Just keep on stitching. So that, and get tighter as you go towards the end. Just reel it in. And so they stitch this last little bit. And then what I have them do, and I don't know if you can see this, but we take your needle, the end of your string, and you loop under a piece of yarn and tie a little knot. And I tell them to hide that little knot, just kind of tuck it in. And so her knot is, and there's a little bit of the end, but she tucked her knot in between. So when she cut it, she just tucked it in between the coils and it's nice and hidden. You can't even, you have to kind of look to see where that's at. So that's how you end it. And you can go as big as you want. I've seen people online that say that they'll do like 20 to 50 feet and do like a big like basket. You can really go big and go bold if you wanted to. But like I said, most of my students, I think they've used 6, maybe 8 feet to make their bowls, and they're decent size. You know, they're perfect for candy. You know, just imagine that with little peppermints in it, or little Hershey Kisses that came out with the cherries inside over Christmas. A bowl of those. But so yeah, like they're decent size. And some of the cute ones, the little tiny ones that the students have done, some have gone small and some personalities really start to show through. They're great for like little earrings or little tidbits or your rings up on your dresser. You know, those little tiny bowls are super cute. I did have one student who used scrap fabric. She realized this is when you have things that make mistakes. Like if the belly button didn't get closed in and you got a little hole there. I had a kid who was like, my hole is too big in the bottom. She just tucked a little piece. I get those. I have a interior designer parent, and she gets those fabric books, you know, that they throw away for making curtains. So she brought me so many of them. And so one of my students was like, can I have a little bit of that? So I gave her some pinking shears. She cut out a cute little circle of a flower pattern and just kind of went around the edge, and she glued it on the bottom and made a cute little bottom. And so her little belly button was covered up. So sometimes those cute little problems can be creative problem solvers for our students. I had another student who started digging through my jewelry thing and found some beads. And so she started making little tassels with beads tied on that went all the way around the top. So, you know, there's creative opportunities for us as adults or for our students. And somebody asked, what's the youngest grade level that I would attempt this project with? Well, thinking back, I taught elementary when I was down in Houston, Texas. Depends on your students. So I would look at, certain years I had that third grade class that was just spot on. I think I could probably have done this with them. But you'd have to look at your students and your skill level and kind of gauge them. If you think that they're a little bit higher level at following directions, I would probably go fourth, fifth, definitely. Fourth and fifth grade, definitely. But I would definitely look at your students and kind of see, because I think each year, they're different. Each group is a unique little group. So you'd have to kind of see where you think they are.
For sure. Yeah.
Let's see. Oh, you learned something from Cassie. Good old Cassie. Fold a skinny piece of paper in half that fits through the eye of the needle. Place your yarn inside the folded paper and thread the paper through the eye. Voila. Yarn goes through the eye. No licking required. That's a good tip. Yeah, I really only had one kid and he just poked it through at the end. Thankfully, yarn needles are pretty big, but yeah, Cassie's always got those great little tips. You're welcome, Lori. I hope this has been helpful. I know I'm trying to think if there's any other little tips and tricks or questions that you might have. I've told you how to add more coil. I've told you how to finish it off with the stitching. And the other thing is just, like you can add, I did mention this, if you feel that it is a little wibbly wobbly, I'm sure that that's a really official term, wibbly wobbly.
Yeah.
You can sew. So if you see that this student did some stitching all the way across, so this is after she finished her bowl, she made like little X's with stitching marks with the blue and with the white. And that helped to hold, hers was a little wibbly. And so she did that and it made it much more firm. On my own, I have snuck in some thin wire when I wanted it to have a really weird shape. I've also done things where at the top where you bend, and I'm going to try to show you this with my fingers. So where you bend and you can make like little holes or loops. So I would wrap this and stitch it here. So at the top of it, you could actually make a really cute little pattern at the top where instead of it being just one edge, it makes sort of a flower or a loop or a wave or a zigzag. So you can be really creative with the pattern on the top.
You have completely demystified. We were trying to use scrap fabric with cord, not cord, but like cotton thread, thick cotton thread to fabric. And you wrap the fabric around the clothesline.
Mm-hmm.
And then you blanket stitched around the fabric with the cotton thread. And we just couldn't even get it started to hold the center coil. But I'm thinking if we started this way, which was completely so much easier, right, Mom?
You're right.
And then we could alternate between the yarn and the fabric.
Mm-hmm.
That would make it so much easier.
Well, and I think if you, Lee had done, and I think Lee's left the group, but Lee Darter had done a workshop that I had attended where we used fabric strips. If the fabric pieces, the strips are fairly thin, you can be a little bit more firm with it. You will get kind of frayed edges and things that will happen, but it's the same concept. And like I said, once you get this patterning down, really, I mean, the creativity is in your hands because you can take pine needles, you can take fabric, you can take strips of old t-shirt, whatever you wanted to do. It's that same concept of wrapping stitching, wrapping, stitching to connect it to go all the way around.
Right.
And you'll have your bowl. And so yeah, you can really adapt your materials. Like I said, the basket that we have that my father had gotten when he was in Alaska, we didn't realize it's probably a museum piece because it's made from the threads of from the whale, and the Eskimo, when they were weaving it together, their fingers would bleed because it's the little parts that kind of cut the parcels of food and bits in the whale's throat. But it's the same exact patterning. So when I started to look at the way it's made, it's just different materials, but the same pattern.
Right.
I think you'll find this in a lot of different cultures, which I think is a great way that we can also connect and show how around the world the same human kind has creatively come up with this same concept of wrapping and taking materials and building it together, whether it's pine needles or the basic elements, but it's a coil, a center part, and something wrapped around it to hold it together in whatever shape or form you want to put it in.
You mentioned earlier that you had done it, other people have done it also with pine needles.
Mm-hmm.
How in the world does that work?
So
they're not long.
well, now if you go down south, if you go down south, you get really long needles, pine needles. I actually, and I'm, so I, 25, 26 years ago, when I was really getting into doing this, the first go around when I was teaching middle school a long time ago, I ordered a kit from Georgia, I believe. And it came with a whole bunch of pine needles, and they were not pine needles that I would find here in Virginia with like the cute little pine needles. It's a longer strand of pine needle. We would say 6 or 7 inches long. And basically, the visual person that I am, I could kind of draw it out. So with the pine needle, basically, you would have your pine needle,
Right.
and you would layer the pine needles together, and it's wrapped and stitched. And so you're using a coil or a threading. Wax thread was really kind of like a waxed beading thread, and you can stitch it to make the pine needle. So the pine needle becomes the coil that you're wrapping around. So when you think about that basic concept of we're taking some sort of centerpiece and we're wrapping with a material.
Oh, so the pine needles are the core.
The pine needles are the core, and you can see the pine needles when you're finished with the basket. If you do a search for pine needles baskets, you'll see them. But they're really beautiful. Usually they're much smaller though, they're tiny, precious. And also the basket from my dad in Alaska, it's much smaller. It's only about this big. It has a little lid on it. So you can also, I've had students where they've made more of like a jar, and they've made a lid that looked like a flat sort of hot plate, and made like a little button or a bead or something on the top to make like a little lid. So you can get very creative with that as well.
Fantastic.
Lots of options once you get the basics down.
Definitely. Oh, I could see the possibilities.
Well, and if anybody, if you start doing it and you run into an issue and you're like, I don't know what to do, or, how do I figure this out? Just message me. I'll be happy to help you problem solve.
Well, thank you.
I said, I feel like I think I started this. It was early on. I would say 28 years ago, I started doing these, and realized that it was such a calming activity. And it's something that you can do sitting and watching TV, and in the winter months, a great little thing. And a lot of people they'll make a hat or a scarf, and they'll end up with, scrap yarn. So the different colors can make for really beautiful bowls and baskets. So this is a perfect thing for all your scraps.
This could be a mat on the floor too, couldn't it?
Oh, definitely. Yes. Yeah. Like, cause I've had students who've used it for like a hot plate, but yeah, if you could definitely, and two with fibers. So I'm from West Virginia originally, a lot of crafting and crafts. And I taught in the southern part, southwestern part of Virginia. It's a lot of Appalachian crafts and things we would do when I was growing up. The fabric scrap, round woven rugs, and it was a staple in every kitchen. When you walked in, there was those oval or round, and it's the same concept but with more of a fabric, and you can tie them. So instead of doing the stitches, you could take little pieces of fabric and you just make a little knot everywhere you want it to stitch together. So instead of sewing with the fabric strips, you could just do a little knot, and with that, you end up with like a little bit of a frill everywhere there's a knot. But I grew up with that as an Appalachian craft.
Mhm. This
Are there
is a-
any other questions? Oh, you're welcome. Some folks have had to head out, but I wanted to make
Everybody
sure.
left, yeah.
But if you have any questions, feel free to just send me a message. I am on, and everyone is welcome to join the Virginia VAEA member forum. Like I mentioned earlier, we take all art teachers and artists and art lovers in our group as well, and happy to speak with you all up in New York. Looking forward to coming up for the conference.
Yeah, we have to have lunch because we have to meet in person.
That would be great. I'm looking forward to it. Last time I went to a New York conference, we actually had a big, I used to call them my little art group get-togethers and art dinners. And we took over one of the restaurants and it was just full of art teachers. It was so much fun, but
That would be fantastic.
yeah.
Do you
So if
have,
any,
like, any kind of handout that you have for your students to give them any guidance, or is it just you handling?
so I'm doing kind of a virtual / I have Canvas. I don't know if Canvas is my learning thing. So I have a little slideshow that I put in our learning system that the kids could see. And then I had a little video that just kind of showed the beginning of this. And then as you can see, I roughly drew out. So I was like, you're going to start with the little point and you're going to make an E. So it's like super basic little simple parts. But for most of the time, I'm using my document camera and just had it projected on the big screen, and then drew it on the board so that the kids could look on either side of the room and see it. But once they get that first little bit, and I walked around the room maybe once or twice just to double check, they're good. They're golden. They've got it. They're stitching. They're going. And usually within the first class, you've got a good center part solid. My classes are 42 minutes long.
How many kids do you have in a class? I'm curious.
28.
Okay, that's pretty good. Pretty good amount. I'm supposed to have 34, and I've been averaging 50% attendance right now. Yeah.
Now, when I taught in Texas, I had classes that were more like in the 40 range. At my intermediate, it's like 42, I think, was my biggest class. But for the most part, we've had a lot of COVID cases here, unfortunately, in the last little bit. So we've had a lot of kids out. Distance learning. So that's why I was saying on my Canvas, I've got the module up so they can watch the video if they know that they're going to be gone, or if a parent's known. Like I said, I do have like everything in a little Ziploc baggie, and they can take it home with them. I had one little student, I said, just tell me what color yarn you want. And I just pre-cut like this,
Right.
little bits, and stuck them in a baggie so that she was ready to go. And she came back and she had her basket finished and she said, can I do another one? So I think for some of our kids who maybe aren't hopefully as sick. They don't feel good, but they can still like sit and rap, or when they're on the bed and they're just, it's something nice that you can do with your hands. And I think some of the kids have enjoyed it. So, which has been nice. So I do, and I did pre-cut a lot of the little bits of colors. So it was easy for kids to just like, if the popular colors, the lime green, the purple, I pre-cut that so that they didn't have to stand there and try to get it cut.
Right. Well, I am so happy.
Well, I hope you enjoy it. And I would like to challenge everybody, when you finish one, send me a picture.
Will do,
I
definitely.
would love to see it. And if anybody's going to conference in New York City, we'll need to catch up.
Do you want to put your email in the
Yeah.
in the
And
chat for folks?
yeah, I can do that. And then I'm also on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. I'm Art Lady HBK, pretty much on all social media. My email is hollybess at Gmail. And you can tag me if you post it on social media. I am currently the president of the Virginia Art Education Association. So I will be at conference. I'm looking forward to being in New York again. I went to NYU, so
Oh,
I have a
good.
connection. But I'm looking forward to there. So if anybody is coming to conference, I hope we can meet up. I hope I can say hello.
Anybody want to hold up their starters?
How far did you get? I was talking too much. Yay! Oh, I love the colors.
Yes, nice.
Nice.
I just grabbed the
Awesome.
first
You know
ball
what?
I could find.
I love everybody's got different colors and different patterns. It's awesome. Personality showing through. That's what I think is great, because everybody can kind of pick their own colors. Well, thank you for inviting me. And I hope everyone stays safe, stays creative, and keeps coiling.
Yeah, keep coiling and keep joining us. If you want to join my mailing list, just email me. I could put my email in the chat as well. And I also post, on Facebook in every single art teacher page that is in existence. So you've probably seen mine 100 times. MND and spirit at AOL.com. So you guys can let me know if you want me to add you to our mailing list. And so I send to the mailing list, and I also post on Facebook every time we have a new session. And who knows, I might stalk you next.
Yeah, and I was saying that Art Lady HBK, those are my initials, Holly Bess Kincaid. So it's just Art Lady. It's on my license plate, Art Lady. And someone had messaged and asked, they'd seen baskets where beads were woven into the bowl. Some of my students did that. So I did offer that up once I saw kids getting into it. I have a bag of like random beads. And so I do have the kids, sometimes if they want to do that, they'll just put it through their needle, or they'll take another after they've done the basket and stitch those in later. So you can do it either way.
Great ideas. Great ideas. Yeah. I'd
Great
love to
question.
see what you guys do too. You could post it under the flyer that I put on Facebook, and we can see everybody's work. Thank you so much for joining us, Holly. You're amazeballs. Thank you so much.
Stay safe, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye. It's good seeing everyone.
Stay safe
Bye,
and have a
Robert.
good weekend. Bye.
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 And
Mom, I'm
tell your
gonna.
mom bye.
Yeah, bye, Mom.
Bye, Mom.
Bye.
It was nice seeing you.
Same
You
here.
too. Stay well, everyone. I'm gonna call you, Mom. All right.
Thank
Oh,
you
I
so
have to
much.
go
This
get
was
my
fun.
phone.
If you ever need me for anything else, I'm happy to pull out some of my crafts.
I will definitely reach out. Thanks again.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.